Hi, my name is Quintilla, also known as Kiki or the Cinematic Aficionado, and today's video is really exciting because today I'm going to be talking about probably one of the most iconic animation companies slash studios in the world. And no, it's not Disney. I'm going to be talking about Studio Ghibli and kind of my relationship with it and kind of discovering Studio Ghibli as an adult, because I watched my first Studio Ghibli movie 2 years ago. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm sure anyone watching this video knows what Studio Ghibli is, but if you don't, Studio Ghibli is a Japanese animation studio. Again, probably one of the most iconic and most popular animation studios outside of Disney. And I didn't watch my first Studio Ghibli movie till 2020. About a year, let's say a year and a half, because we just started 2022. So growing up, I was aware of Studio Ghibli movies. I knew about My Neighbor Totoro, I knew about Spirited Away, and I remember, I can't tell you what movie it was, but when I was younger, I was watching a movie at home on DVD and it had the trailer for Ponyo, actually. And I remember as a child looking at it and being like, I don't like this. I didn't get it, so I just wasn't interested in watching it. And as I grew older and everyone was like, oh my god, Studio Ghibli, I just was not interested. It's not that I didn't want to watch it, I just didn't. And another thing is, I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and what I grew up watching as a child was very much influenced by Western culture, Western media. So I didn't really watch anime as a child. I didn't watch, Studio Ghibli as a child. If you had told me to name 5 Studio Ghibli movies 10 years ago, I couldn't. But if you had told me to name every single movie in the Disney Renaissance, I could. And I think that is a reason why I just wasn't interested in the movies growing up when I became a teenager, when I became, really into movies. That was just because I just didn't grow up with it. So I didn't have the emotional attachment that a lot of people had to the movies. Then fast forward to 2020 and the lockdowns and the pandemic, and I was bored. I had a lot of time on my hands. I was watching and reviewing movies at accelerated rate, way quicker than I'm doing now, and I just needed something new to watch. Interestingly enough, 2020 was also the year I started watching K-dramas, and I think just being at home and watching the same kinds of shows over and over again, I needed something new, I needed something different. So one day in, I believe August, if I can find the actual Instagram story, I'll insert it on screen, I posted on my Instagram and I said, I need something new to watch. I feel like watching a Studio Ghibli movie. What are some of your favorites? And I got a lot of recommendations. And in October, I don't know when I watched Howl's Moving Castle, but in October I reviewed my first Studio Ghibli movie, Howl's Moving Castle, and I was blown away. I was enthralled from beginning to end. I'll actually read an excerpt of my review of Howl's Moving Castle, which I will leave linked down below. All the Studio Ghibli reviews I've done, I will leave linked down below. And in that review, I said, as the title suggests, this was my introduction to Studio Ghibli. And I know what you're about to ask, how have you never watched a Studio Ghibli movie? And the answer to the question is pretty simple. Throughout my life, I've consumed a lot of westernized media, and now that I'm older, I'm diversifying what I watch, from Korean dramas to anime. And I knew that I had to watch a Studio Ghibli movie at some point, so here we are. And Howl's Moving Castle is great. It has pretty much everything you would want in a movie. A fascinating premise with lasting themes, great voice acting that carries the emotional weight of the film, and stellar animation. I really should have watched this movie sooner, but hey, no time like the present, right? And I think that was basically my idea, my reaction to it. I was like, you know what? I haven't watched a Studio Ghibli movie. I'm not, well versed in this, particular property that so many people love, but after watching Howl's Moving Castle, I remember saying to myself, there's a reason that these movies are loved by everybody, and I do mean everybody. Ask any film fan or a cinephile if they've seen a Studio Ghibli movie, the answer is probably yes, because the movies are good, and they're more than that, they're great. The thing about the movies is that for me personally, they fill me with a sense of wonder. And even though I am only 23, sometimes I think that I've become quite jaded because of just the world that we live in and everything that we've gone through as a society and everything I've gone through. And sometimes it's nice to watch a movie that makes you forget about your worries, and it makes you feel like a child again. And I haven't felt that honestly since I watched Disney movies as a kid. And sometimes I wonder how much different, or how differently my outlook on cinema would be if I had watched those movies when I was younger. So you're probably wondering, what is my favorite Studio Ghibli movie? The honest truth is this changes. And up until about a month ago, my favorite Studio Ghibli movie was Princess Mononoke. I remember I couldn't sleep in about November, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I got out of bed, wrapped in my blanket, and I thought, you know what, I need a new movie to review for my series that I do by Thursday. So I said, you know what, let me just go on Netflix and watch a Studio Ghibli movie, because I was trying to watch as many Studio Ghibli movies as I could. And I went on Netflix. I'm really happy and I'm really lucky that here in Nigeria we have a lot of Studio Ghibli movies. And I just went on Netflix and I just searched Studio Ghibli. The first one that popped up was Howl's Moving Castle, which I had already seen, then Spirited Away, which I had just seen, then Princess Mononoke. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna watch it. And again, I was blown away. But I think the reason that I liked it so much was that it was so different from Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle that I had watched before it. My overall thoughts on the movie, I'm not sure why this movie stood out to me more than the rest, but I absolutely loved every minute of this movie. From the story to the art direction and animation, everything just works. Wikipedia described this movie as an epic fantasy, and epic is the right word. From the animation to the story and runtime, everything about this movie is epic. This movie is special. It's so different from any other animated movie I've watched, and it has the rewatchability factor. While I enjoyed every Studio Ghibli film I've watched, something about this film clicked with me, and because of that, I'm definitely gonna watch it again. And the honest truth is, I could say that about pretty much every Ghibli movie I've watched. The Ghibli movies I've watched, in the order in which I've watched them, are Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, Ocean Waves, Ponyo, and Kiki's Delivery Service. Now I know that there's so much more for me to watch, like Castle in the Sky and Porco Rosso, and I promise I will get to those. These movies, I think, really changed my outlook on animation. Ghibli movies are special. And I know that's a really blanket term, but they feel special. They feel like an experience while you watch them. They draw you into the world. And from the animation to the sound design to the voice acting, everything about the movies work collectively to bring you something that you have never seen before and you may probably never see again. So before I sat down to film this video, over the past couple of days, I've been watching video essays on Ghibli. I haven't watched too many because I don't want to sit here and kind of parrot what other people are saying. This is kind of more about my experience with the movies and my opinion of the movies, even though my opinion is that they're all fantastic. The video essays that I've watched have really broken down what I'm trying to say in a really concise and eloquent way. The interesting thing is that each video that I've watched kind of focuses on something different. I watched a video essay called The Immersive Realism of Studio Ghibli by Asher Ishbaker. In that video, he focuses on Ghibli's world building and how they use animation to do that. I said it in my Kiki's Delivery Service review that I reviewed a couple months ago, which again, everything will be linked down below. And I said that the world and the city that Kiki lives in feels real. There's something about a Ghibli movie that feels real. Everyone pretty much points it out in every single video and review that they do, but the attention to detail is exquisite. Every single frame has something going on, and all the people in that frame are doing something. Asher Ishbaker says in his review that the animators show a mastery of technique and attention to detail, and it's true, especially in movies like Kiki's Delivery Service and Spirited Away, where the movie takes place somewhere that's very busy. In Kiki's Delivery Service, I can remember that the best because I watched that not too long ago, but again, the cities just feel real. It feels like even though you're following Kiki, you could follow anybody else in the city and still be fascinated by their day-to-day. And even in Spirited Away probably has one of the most interesting locations that I've seen in a movie in a very long time. It's a bathhouse, but for spirits. And again, it feels like even though you're following one character, if you followed 10 other people, you would encounter 10 completely different locations and 10 completely different stories. And that's what makes the movies feel alive. It's what makes them feel real. It's what makes them feel relatable to you, because you are the main character in your own story, but the person that you sit next to on the bus has their own story, and if you followed them, you'd be seeing a world completely different to the one that you inhabit. And those movies really feel like that, and because of that, it makes me want to sit down and pick the movie apart. So a quote from Hayao Miyazaki from Ash Ishbrook's video, it's like a quoteception, is anime may depict fictional worlds, but I nonetheless believe that at its core it must have a certain realism. Their emotions will become yours, and as it is often said, you will become both an animator and an actor. And when you read the things that Hayao Miyazaki says about his movies and his process, and then you watch the movies with that in mind, you look at the movies differently. What he says about becoming an animator and an actor is 100% true. You feel as though the animators are there with you. In another video essay that I watched just before I started filming this on how Studio Ghibli makes animation feel alive by Captain Kristen, which I will link down below. I'll leave all the video essays linked down below. He says it's almost as if Miyazaki is tucking us in and reading us a story. I watched another video essay called Hayao Miyazaki, The Mind of a Master by Animation, and basically talked about Miyazaki's process and how he goes about making the movie. He's incredibly detailed, from storyboarding to background design to everything. Every single frame is meticulously animated by both him and the incredible people that work at Studio Ghibli. And again, because of that, the movies feel vibrant, they feel alive, they feel like you're a voyeur in a world that already exists. Because sometimes you watch a movie and you know that, okay, this is the beginning of the movie, this is the end of the movie. Once the movie ends, there's nothing else there. It's just a void of this one story. But the movies don't feel like that. I remember when I finished watching Kiki's Delivery Service after, spoiler alert, but I'm sure most of you have watched it already. After the movie ends and Kiki is able to fly on her broomstick, I remember thinking to myself, what would she go and do now? Yes, she has her delivery service, but I just wanted to see more of Kiki and her daily life, and the bakery that she was living in. Like, what kind of bread do they bake? Things like that. The movie had ended, but it felt like the world was still vibrant and colorful, and there was still so much more going on. And because of that, it makes me want to watch the movies again and again and again, because I want to see more of the world. I want to see more of the characters. Even the background characters, like I said before, it feels like they are real people in real locations. Like, I want to travel to these worlds, these actual places, to see the things that I didn't get to see in the movie. One thing all the video essays that I've watched have made point to point out is how the visuals drive the story. In pretty much every single review that I've ever done, I talk about the animation, and I made it a running joke that y'all get tired of me talking about how much I love the animation, but seriously, the animation is so fluid. I watched a movie with a friend of mine a couple days ago, about 2 days ago. I haven't reviewed it yet. When I do, hopefully it'll be out before this video, so if it is, I'll link it. It was Your Name, and I remember saying to her, I said, the animation is so fluid while also being incredibly structured, and that is a fantastic way to describe this. And the scene that comes to mind is Ponyo, where Ponyo is running on the waves, and she's running on water, so the water is moving, and it's just an incredibly beautiful fluid motion. But even at that, it's grounded and it has its own rules and its own physics. Because of that, it's beautiful to watch, and even though it is a fantasy, it still makes sense. And I think that's truly a mastery of your craft, being able to create these worlds that are fantasy and feel like fantasy, but also feel like it could be happening somewhere on the planet. Another thing that was really pointed out to me, especially in the video essay by Captain Kristen, is sound design. Now, I, as a film fan, I'm someone who does pay attention to score and soundtrack and sound design. I make it a point to talk about the score, soundtrack, and sound design in every single movie that I watch, regardless of whether it's a bad movie or a good movie. And Ghibli movies really take sound design seriously. The video essay that I'm referencing, he shows the difference between the original Ghibli movie and the English dubbed version distributed by Disney, and the difference is night and day. From the sound of the wind to the sound of cars to grass, blades of grass. It sounds really simple, but all of these things put together really create a world that both you and the characters live in. You know, you have somebody walking across a bridge and you can hear their footsteps, you can hear the stream underneath the bridge, you can hear the wind whipping past them, and it makes those moments kind of contemplative. Now, one of the movies that really does this really well is Totoro. I don't know why I pronounce it like that, My Neighbor Totoro. Totoro. And what it does is, because the movie takes place in a pretty rural setting, you have all these sounds of nature, from you know, again, the wind to, you know, the odd car that will pass on the street. And even Totoro is really cute with the sounds that he makes. And another thing is that the sounds in each movie are distinct to that movie. Even though there's sounds that we all recognize, again, like wind, water, in Howl's Moving Castle, the sound of fire, it still feels like those sounds are contained in that movie. The sound design of Spirited Away is not the sound design of Kiki's Delivery Service, is not the sound design of Ponyo. It's not that, okay, this is the sound of water, we're just gonna take the sound of water and put it in each of these films. It's like, no, the way the water sounds in Ponyo is not the way it sounds in Spirited Away. And because of that, you have a movie that feels like its own thing. There's visual similarity between all of these movies, but each one is unique and different in its own way. And then something else about the Ghibli movies that I personally love is, the honest truth is, these movies are fun. You know, I said at the beginning that they bring out a childlike sense of wonder in me. And if you wanted to get semantic about it, these movies are, some of them are for kids, but I feel like I've gained more watching them as an adult than I ever would have watching them as a child. And I watched a lot of Disney music as a child. I was a Disney kid. I sang along to all the songs, and I still do. But I sometimes wonder, like, what would have happened if I watched, you know, Hercules for the first time as an adult? And I say all that to say is that I appreciate the movies more. You know, as a child, I probably would have said, oh, this is really cute, this movie is really pretty, and I would have moved on. But as an adult, especially as someone who reviews movies fairly frequently and pays attention to intricacies in the film and in the story, I can really sit down and pick the movie apart. I can, you know, pause and rewind and look at how this frame matches this, and there's so much to see in a Ghibli movie. From the colors to the way the colors blend, to again the sound, to the voice acting and the way the voice actors carry the emotion of the film. A lot of the main characters in Ghibli movies are kids, and it's the way that the voice actors are able to enunciate their words so beautifully that I, as an adult, you know, want to be in the room with them while they record. I would love to see just the process. And you know, when we talk about Ghibli, we obviously talk about Hayao Miyazaki and the fact that the man is a genius, but you know, we also don't talk about everybody else involved. Captain Kristen's video does a really good job at naming so many people that work on the movie and the amount of work it takes, and the people, the Foley artists, the people who paint the background, to the sound engineers. You know, it's such a collective process. You know, even though Hayao Miyazaki might have the idea, it takes, you know, well over 100 people for that idea to come to life and be the movie that we watch in cinema or on Netflix. And watching the movies, you really feel as though each person working on the movie has their own signature. It feels like a collaboration. It's not just, oh yeah, it's just a movie that I watched. Sometimes I watch a movie and, you know, I know what it takes to make a movie. I know the amount of people it takes to work on a movie, but I watch the movie and I kind of forget about it and I go, okay, yeah, that was a movie. But with Ghibli, it's never just a movie. The movies stick with me. especially Kiki's Delivery Service that I watched a couple weeks ago. That movie really resonated with me because of its message of just believing in yourself and, you know, being your own biggest fan. Well, that was my takeaway anyway. And even though I said Princess Mononoke is my favorite, I do think Kiki's Delivery Service was a movie that I was meant to watch when I watched it because I was going through a really tough time. Still kind of am. But just the message of the movie and just seeing Kiki overcome everything and seeing her grow up without being forced to be an adult is something that I really noticed with these movies. The characters become more mature, but they don't feel older. Sometimes you watch a movie and, you know, this person has gone through so much and then they become a lot more jaded and become a lot more, I guess, like an adult. But with these, it's even though they've been through something incredible, they still come out of it with a sense of wonder and joy, and, you know, that makes me smile because even though, again, these characters have changed, the core of who they are as a character is still the same. So I mentioned the sound design, but one thing I didn't mention is score. I am a huge film score nerd. I wrote a whole blog post on the importance of film score, and I'll link it down below. But Joe Hiyashi, which I am pronouncing very badly, I do not speak a word of Japanese, so I apologize for my terrible pronunciations. But Joe Hiyashi is a master of his craft. In Captain Kristen's video, he mentions that the score is used when it's necessary. He did compare it to Western movies and how Western movies use background music and score almost as a way to drive the plot forward. You know, it is interesting that when you watch a movie, Western movie, that doesn't have a lot of noise or a lot of background music, a lot of people find it very unsettling. Actually, I can't remember what it was, but there wasn't a lot of score. It wasn't score driven at all. It was just the occasional sound of the wind, you know, and dialogue. And I remember the person I was watching it going, there's something very unsettling about this movie, I don't like it. And I remember thinking to myself that it was very refreshing. You know, I love film score. It's one of my favorite aspects of film in general. But it was very fascinating for me to sit and watch a movie that didn't have a lot of auditory filler. And that's the thing with Ghibli movies, there isn't auditory filler. So in a movie like Spirited Away, when you have the score and it's, you know, loud and boisterous and just beautiful, it really feels different. It moves you. In my Spirited Away review, I said, Joe Hisashi, the composer, created a score that adds depth to the world while making it both realistic and fantastical. The music is embedded into the story, and each score functions not only to propel the story and build the world, but also serves as a way to introduce emotion to not just you, but the characters themselves. The music in this movie is beautiful. The songs in this movie are beautiful, and the ones that stood out to me are One Summer's Day and Always With Me. One Summer's Day is hopeful and nostalgic while also feeling big and cinematic, while also feeling magical. And that is really the best way to describe the score in Ghibli movies. It's not just an emotional moment for you, the viewer, it's an emotional moment for the characters, and that makes it more impactful. Again, in Captain Kristen's video, he really focused on sound design, so that's why I'm referencing his video a lot. In his video, he really goes on to talk about how sound is so important, and again, from the wind to footsteps to the rustling of leaves in the trees, and how those moments help to make the world feel tangible. And when you combine, you know, atmospheric sounds with background actors and characters that don't look like they're just there for the sake of the movie, with a story that feels like you could follow anyone in this world, you have a movie that feels very complete. Sometimes I watch movies and I think this movie was great, but, you know, something about it was lacking. I have never felt that in a Ghibli movie. Every single frame, every moment is deliberate and it's captivating. And again, I'm happy that I watched these movies as an adult because I would not have appreciated these things as a child. You know, as somebody who just started watching these movies recently, I feel like I have a lot more to learn about these movies. I asked on my Instagram, and I asked people, I said, oh, when did you start watching Ghibli movies and why? A lot of people said, oh, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago. And the movies are just special. They, you know, make me feel, they're heartwarming. And it's interesting because it's a lot of the same adjectives of, you know, Again, heartwarming, special, magical, and that really is the best way that I would describe these movies. They're magical. They take you to a place that even though you know doesn't exist, you wish it did, because you want to live there, you want to go there, you want to have these experiences that these characters have. And before I leave, I wanted to talk about themes, because every movie feels like it has its own specific theme. You know, Princess Mononoke, and you know, how we treat nature, and industrialization versus conservation of nature. You have Howl's Moving Castle that is blatantly, you know, anti-war. You have a movie like Kiki's Delivery Service that is about, you know, yourself and finding your own path in the world. You have Spirited Away on the human being and our tempestuous relationships with the spiritual. And each movie, even though the themes are different, they all feel like they belong in the same world. And I don't know if there's a Ghibli cinematic universe. That would be really cool if it was. But again, I just want to inhabit these worlds. That is kind of my just opinions, views, talk on Studio Ghibli. Me discovering it as an adult, why I'm happy I discovered it as an adult. And I just want to say that I'm really excited to watch more. The Ghibli movie, my favorite Ghibli movie is Princess Mononoke or Kiki's Delivery Service. I have seen one Ghibli movie that I didn't instantly love, and that was Ponyo. I'll link everything down below and all the video essays that I used as reference for this. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell me what I could have done better. This is my first like chit chat video, essay type video. So if there's anything that I could have done better, please let me know, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.